Hello everyone and welcome to this video where we're going to be taking a look at a really cool creation that I found on the Steam Workshop. It inspired me to make a second part, the first one being the Snow Cruiser, and I'm just going to take a look at historical creations. I'm going to call this series Building History because here we are in Stormworks building really cool historical creations that we can take a look at and learn from as well as give tribute to. In this episode, we're taking a look at the GM Futureliner. Now, this series is intended to go over past creations that have been rebuilt in Stormworks. The historical accuracy is important and the historical importance. So, like I said, in this video, we're looking at the GM Futureliner. This is a beautiful creation built again by user Butthul and Tiggerer. So, this creation is the number 3 GM Futureliner, and I'll explain what that means in a second. But as you can see from these photos, it is a beautiful and detailed build inspired by a real-life creation, or real-life vehicle. And funny enough, this was on the homepage, and I saw it just after sort of releasing the other creation by these two users, and the other creation being the Snow Cruiser. So I saw this and I'm like, I gotta make a series out of this because these types of historical creations not only have significance, but we can take a look at how they influenced history, we could look at the engineering behind them, and see how the Stormworks build does the real life one justice. We'll dig into the history of this amazing vehicle. So as you can see here in this image, it is a very massive truck. It is very curved. It has the classic 1940s style Art Deco design, very curved, very shiny, lots of chrome, the coloring, and it is just beautiful. I think it stood the test of time because when you look at this, yes, you could tell it's dated, but it doesn't look like a drab box. It has style, it has artwork behind this, and it continues on to the back as well, where you could kind of see this curved shape making its way all the way to the rear. And of course, when the side opens up, you get a beautiful exhibit, and these would sort of be traveling exhibits that would travel around the US and teach people, especially in small towns and things where they didn't have access to technology. This is a time well before internet, and TVs were sort of existing then, but it wasn't very common in this time era, the 30s and 40s and 50s. It was mostly radio, so this gave people the chance to see things in person, in real life. There was 12 of these created. Each one was a different exhibit. As you can see, the one on the bottom right is the miracles of heat and cold. There was ones for rocket engines. There was ones for TV. There was all kinds of different exhibits. And they would travel around. And I believe it started way back in the 1920s when the first sort of iteration of this type of show existed, where they would go around and travel. But in the 20s there was no dedicated vehicle, so by the 30s there was sort of discussion and design of having this first iteration that was called the Streamliner, and again it would travel around the US all over and teach people the miracles of progress and where they've kind of gotten to with technology and stuff. And what you see here is, again, the first iteration. It looks more so like a milk truck or a delivery truck, but it does have this sort of very characteristic design, again called the Streamliner, and it was the first iteration of the Parade of Progress dedicated vehicle. I believe it was also called a silver top or gray top because the top was very shiny and kind of like a stainless steel type. And the problem was, in the 30s, the road infrastructure was not designed to handle such large vehicles, because even a milk truck or delivery truck wouldn't have that additional roof height. So what happened is, not only was the road infrastructure not great, very narrow and small bridges and things. So you see here on the left side, they actually had to deflate the tires just to get it underneath a bridge. It wasn't until after World War II they had the interstate system, they had highways, they had a better way of transporting these trucks over the country. So this was sort of a time when it was a very ambitious attempt, but maybe not the best in terms of practicability, but yet they still did it. So you have to give them kudos for that, being the 1930s. Then they had another iteration of the truck, which was called the Previews of Progress, and it looks almost like an RV, like a funky RV, and it doesn't have as high of a roofline, or at least it doesn't have that sort of extended roofline. The cab is near the top, but you could tell it's a large vehicle and a very interesting shape for sure. Again, has the curvature, has that Art Deco style. For the Futureliner itself, the development started sort of in the 40s, and or it started in the late 30s and continued into the 40s. You could see here the engineers designing the different shapes and sort of forming the metal working process and having these little models. So lots of design went into this in terms of engineering, and these things were massive. They were probably the largest things on the road at the time. 33 feet long, 8 feet wide, and 11 feet tall, 12 tons each. And funny enough, there is actually dual wheels in the front, so it's a dually in the front and rear. You have these doors that open on the sides, they're electronically opening. They have a power plant inside the engine. Diesel engine also serves to power this vehicle as it sort of is stopped and is displaying these things with usually technology lights, electricity flowing through them. So it is a marvel of engineering, and I always love seeing sort of old engineering photos like this of the design and sort of the effort that went into this, because of course molding body panels back then, you had to create a whole formwork and sort of slowly mold it into shape. So very interesting. The fabrication itself, this is a really cool photo. It's a little grainy, but it sort of shows the seat, the cockpit on the top, and the framework, like the large tires. And before the body's even put on, they're already forming the interior and the chassis behind it. So really interesting to see this. Now, this is the 1941 Futureliner, the first iteration of this new style vehicle that they call the Futureliner. Here it is in an exhibit. And as you could see on this right hand image, the cockpit is this like dome shaped glass compartment. This is a time before air conditioning, so you can imagine being in there, you'd end up like being in a greenhouse. You just get burned and very hot in there. So actually what they did after World War II, when the show kind of continued, they ended up switching it. So you could see the left-hand side is before World War II, or sort of when the Parade of Progress was happening during World War II, and then after they stopped for a while and then continued in the 50s, they changed that design. They also changed the engine. I believe it went from a 4-cylinder to the 6-cylinder inline that we know and that we have in the latest iteration that you see on the right-hand side here. So very interesting to know that that was sort of a consideration that went in, or a design that was not a huge flaw and easily fixable, but that they went ahead and kind of made this bubble shape, which looked overly ambitious and very modern, and then had to change it because it just was not working for the people driving. But as you can see, this convoy is super cool. You have these really cool looking vehicles making their way into your town. You for sure would go and take a look at what they have to offer, because look at this, it just looks super impressive. So here they are rolling through towns and making their way to the progress, to the parades, when they would then sort of display what they have. Now next we're going to show the interior. So out of the 12 that exist, there are 9, I believe, that are currently still existing. Out of the 12 that were built, 9 are existing. There's different levels of interiors for them. You could see, I'm not sure which one is the restored and which one's the original, but you see this sort of green metal and the cushioning around the side. Again, this cockpit shape with the seat in the very middle. It's very high up too, as you can tell. The interior is accessed through this doorway that opens on the bottom, and you kind of go up these like school bus style stainless steel stairs to the top seat, and then there's some seats in the back as well. I believe it was a 4-speed manual as well, this engine. You can see the large gear shift. Then the engine, we don't have a lot of photos, but really what you do is there's a door on the other side of the opposite of where the stairs are that accesses the sort of power plant and engine. And you could see here that it just very cramped space right beneath the cockpit. It'd probably be quite loud and hot coming from there, but they fit it in and it works in that location. Of course, then we get to the exhibit. So this is the jet engine, the power for the air age. So it discusses sort of how jet engines are the future, and this is actually the one that I believe we're going to see in the model that was built by these two Stormworks users. So I'm very excited to see how they did this in the game. Of course, the Legacy, like I said, there was 12 of them built. You have certain ones that still exist. You see them in museums here, in good condition, of course, as well, which is great to know. But not all of them have survived intact. There were some that were destroyed early on. There were some that were damaged, and then some that were just left and neglected, which is quite unfortunate because it is a very rare vehicle. But interesting enough, twice it has been sold in the Barrett-Jackson auction for over 4 million. I believe the first time was in 2006 and the second time was in 2015. So twice a different one was sold for a large sum of money. So it's good to know that they are still in existence and still being sort of appreciated for what they have to offer. Now, after that little presentation, you really could get an appreciation for this build because they went and did, I'd say, a fine job modeling it based on what we saw in the video here in my little analysis. Of course, they couldn't get the dual front wheels in the front. Well, actually, they probably could have, but I guess they didn't go ahead and do that, which is fine. But the overall shape, especially this little intake, the lights, beautiful. The big GM badging, and on the side the Parade of Progress. Even went ahead and put the mirrors on, which is awesome. And you kind of see this curve around cockpit with the little skylight opening, which I do believe that I kind of saw that one had. So really neat. Of course, there's some limitations to Stormworks. I believe the other ones had more headlights in the front, but that doesn't matter. That's a small detail that they just are kind of have to work with the limitations of what Stormworks has to offer. They did put a tow hitch, which is awesome, and then they went ahead and put the license plate, and you see GM on the back, you see GM on the front. So really beautiful design. Now we're going to step into the cockpit area, and if we just jump in here, there's a fire extinguisher. We can close the door and make our way up the stairs. Here you see there's 3 seats, beautiful interior. These look very comfy actually, and here you can kind of see that visual of the photo we had of the interior. Close enough, to be honest. I mean, the one that we saw was curving around, but here there's a limitation, especially headroom. But you could see the dashboard, very simple, and this sort of little cockpit viewport, which is really cool. They did make the controls very easy to operate, so that is awesome. I always like when there's a sort of vehicle that's very straightforward and easy to control, and that's exactly what they did here. Beautiful build, to be honest. Lots of details when you see everything that they have in here. So I'm gonna put the handbrake on, and like you said, seats in the front, and then this staircase. Obviously, Stormworks sort of limitation is the stairs. We don't get a lot of different types of stairs, but they did their best, and actually this angle too looks quite similar to that one picture we saw in the presentation as well. So really cool. Level of accuracy, to be honest, that is very impressive. Now we get the engine bay here. Can't quite see much into here, and of course we didn't really get a good glimpse of how it looks in real life, but I'd say that just the fact that it's in the right place, and then when you see these kind of doors, double doors leading into the front of the vehicle, just looks very cool. Making our way to the back, I'm going to skip this for now. You can see here there's a back door that opens up to some equipment. This I'm not quite sure what the real life one would or wouldn't have had, but nice little area here for some equipment just to make the vehicle useful as well as a rescue, I guess, vehicle. And then on this side here, if we push this little thing opens up, and on the screen we turn it on. Let's see. So it has music, which is really cool. Like, it's like very fitting, like a carnival style music. So not very loud. I'm not sure if we can turn up the volume, but really cool to have kind of carnival fair music in this in this parade. So it really is lively as far as the parade goes. And then if we toggle this button, look at that. Look at that. So that roof part opens up with all these lights. This part opens up and you could see inside is a beautiful reconstruction of what we just saw as far as the jet engine exhibit goes. And we could turn on the lights. All these lights turn on. Like, look at that. What an incredible sight. And again, this would be what would be sort of traveling around and go into different areas, and the children and people would gather and sort of watch and learn what this Futureliner has to offer in terms of lessons for the people. So beautiful exhibit, and actually it actually comes with a working jet engine in the back. So not only do you get to look at it in terms of learning how jet engines work and stuff, you actually get to see it in action. And then over here you get thrust, drag, like a little display here, and over here you get that exact same style of picture that they had in the back, where they kind of had the Earth with various planes, and then over here you have another element of some sort of display piece. So really well done, and a beautiful creation, honestly, with all the lights and all the things, the music, totally polished. And you saw how that kind of folds out, so well, great use of space too. How they put all the lights in that thing that opens up, great shape. Again, love when I see stuff like this, and this is a definite great sort of vehicle that brings the amazing times of historical events into Stormworks, which I always like to see. I like to see when there's sort of something that we can inspire from the real life and bring it into the video game to learn about engineering, to learn about the different elements that went into these creations. And I always find that fascinating, especially when these old creations and old vehicles, like the real life ones, had such interesting history that goes with them. Like, it was a time on Earth when we didn't know all that we know now. So then of course you get something like this that would go and teach people, and that would break the bounds of size of vehicles on the highway and all that good stuff. So beautiful creation, love to see stuff like this. Thank you to these two users, to Tigger and to Butthole, for making this. Honestly, love to see it. And I know you guys have done other creations as well, so I'll take a look and see if there's anything else that inspires me to sort of go ahead and do more of these types of building history videos, as well as there are other users that have developed their own historical recreations, so I will look at those at some point too. But thank you all for watching. Hopefully you learned something about this really neat vehicle, and hopefully you enjoyed, and as always, happy Stormworksing, everyone.